The House of EdTech is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. The Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more, go to edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey, I'm Miles, and you're listening to the House of EdTech with my daddy, Chris Nessie.
Support for this episode of the House of EdTech comes from summerpd.com. It doesn't matter that we are in the middle of winter. You can expand your knowledge of Google Classroom, apps, formative assessments, and much more. SummerPD.com offers 10 courses that you can get for just $25 when you use the coupon code House of EdTech. Sign up now to access the courses for professional development on your schedule, and thank you to SummerPD.com for all your support. Welcome to the House of EdTech podcast. I am your host, Christopher Nessie, and the House of EdTech explores how technology is changing the way teachers teach and the impact that technology is having in education. My objectives include discussing technology that is changing our classrooms and schools and sharing tools and tips that you can hear about today and use tomorrow. I talk to teachers, leaders, and creators just like you and have them share their stories. The purpose? Whether you use it or not, technology is changing the way we teach and how our students learn. And coming up in this episode of the House of EdTech podcast, we've got the EdTech Thought, where we're going to talk about One Word 2017. Also going to do another EdTech recommendation, where we will answer the question, is it possible to have an interactive whiteboard that you can use on any device? And of course, no episode is complete without the House of EdTech VIP, and we have a little bit of a twist here to start 2017. And my featured content in this episode, we have my review and recap of my visit and trip to New York City in December 2016 to New York EdTech Week. I'm going to be bringing in Sierra Gritali, who you may remember from episode number 74. She is back, and she's waiting patiently in the wings here at the House of EdTech, and we're going to talk about our experience at New York EdTech Week. And I'm also going to be sharing some conversations with the co-producers, Jonathan Harbour and Ash Kaluarachi. And we have a lot of sound bites that talk about a couple of different products that I found interesting and feature some up-and-coming startups that I got to meet at New York EdTech Week. But before we dive in, just a couple of quick things. First, Happy New Year. If this is your first episode of the House of EdTech, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. This is episode number 77, so you only have 76 episodes to catch up on. It's really not that bad. I am calling a bit of an audible with this episode. In the 2016 House of EdTech Smackdown, back in episode 76, I said that this episode would feature a conversation with James Sturdivant. Obviously it doesn't, but I do have that conversation, and I'm going to put that in the next episode, number 78. And I've already gotten some great feedback about the 2016 Smackdown via Twitter, and if you haven't listened to it yet, just head over to chrisnessie.com/76, and you can see the show notes and get the links to everything that was shared in that great episode. And go to chrisnessie.com/subscribe if you are not yet subscribed to the podcast. And please share any other recommendations in the comments on that page, or just share them anytime on Twitter or Voxer or any of the other many ways you can get in touch with me. Another quick announcement. I have started a Facebook group for you. Now, I'm still developing exactly how I want to make the best use of said Facebook group, but right now it's a place that you can meet other people who listen to the show, and it's another way to connect directly with me. Now, I mean, we already talk twice a month, so why don't we hang out on Facebook too? Just go to chrisnessie.com/Facebook, and you can join the community there. And before we get to the EdTech Thought, I have a little bit of a commercial, but this is definitely worth not skipping. This is a little announcement from EdChange Global, and thank you to Cassie Reeder, Jamie Donnelly, and Deborah Atchison. Take it away, ladies.
Hi, this is Jamie Donnelly, and I'm here with Deb Atchison.
And we're here to talk to you today about EdChange Global.
We're super excited about this classroom event that is going to be connecting and collaborating students and classrooms all over the world. In our past events, we've been able to connect 80 different countries, and we cannot wait to see the topics that are going to be discussed.
We are still looking for classes to sign up and facilitate sessions. So if you have something that you are passionate about and your students want to share, we would love for you to sign up to facilitate a session and share what you know with students and classes from all over the world.
During the event, we're going to have our schedule active with all the topics that you're interested in. And we're also going to have challenges happening every hour to get every classroom actively engaged in discussing different topics.
We have a lot of vendors that have signed up to help sponsor our event, and they're giving away amazing prizes to classrooms that participate in the challenges. So you'll definitely want to join us for that. You can follow us on Twitter at EdChange Global, and make sure to follow the hashtag ECGC17 for all of the information before, during, and after the event.
You can also find more information about the event on the website at tiny.cc/EdChangeGlobal.
For this episode's EdTech Thought, I put the word out on Twitter. It's January here, 2017, and the big thing is New Year's resolutions and starting the year off right and making changes to what we do personally, professionally. And the big deal right now is hashtag #OneWord2017. Now, again, I put the word out on Twitter to have people who were already doing this record themselves and submit their one word 2017 and explain why they chose their word. And I'm not going to delay it. We got 10, so let's get right to it. And first up, we have AJ Bianco.
Hello, Mr. Nessie and the House of EdTech listeners. This is AJ Bianco. I'm a 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher in New Jersey, and I'm coming at you with my one word for 2017. This year, my one word is driven, and I am driven to be a better educator. I'm driven to be a better educational leader. I am driven to learn, continue learning, and then, of course, I'm driven to be a better father to my 2 sons and a better husband to my wife. And this word driven will push me to succeed at everything I put myself to do. I hope you have your one word for 2017, and I would love to hear it. Please feel free to follow me on Twitter at AJ Bianco, and please feel free to read my blog, ajbianco.me. Have a great 2017 and get your one word out there.
You too, AJ, and I will be sharing my one word after I play all of these clips. Next up, Chuck Poole.
Hey, Chris. My name is Chuck Poole. My Twitter handle is at cpool27. I'm the host of the Teachonomy Talks podcast and the founder of teachonomy.com, and I'm an educator in Edison, New Jersey. Now, my one word for 2017 is relentless, because I think it's time for teachers, leaders, and people from all walks of life to have confidence that they can make a difference despite any obstacles that may come along the way. And it's my goal to be relentless this year, not to only pursue my dreams, but to also help others achieve theirs. So I'm going to be a relentless dreamer, a relentless encourager, a relentless inspiration, a relentless teacher, and a relentless leader to anyone who may need it in 2017. Thanks for giving me the chance to share, and I hope that you are relentless in whatever you choose to do this year as well.
I know that Chuck is saying that everybody listening, that you should be relentless. I'm going to express my relentlessness by relentlessly continuing to play another clip. Next up, we have great New Jersey educator and friend of mine, Mr. Dan Whalen.
Hi, House of EdTech. This is Dan Whalen. I am at Whalen on Twitter. I'm an instructional technology coach in Collingswood, New Jersey, and my one word for 2017 is less. I decided that would be my one word over the Christmas break when I purged a lot of excess belongings out with the old and with the new, cleaned out kids' toys, a lot of old stuff in the attic, and really started to think about everything for this year, that in order to really kind of give more of myself, I needed to downsize in other areas. So that might mean, focusing on one Twitter chat instead of 5, and maybe not going to every single conference all year, and downsizing overall, because I really think in the end, less is more.
Dan, I couldn't agree more, and that's something that I've been working on because I do want to put myself out there. I do want to be involved in Twitter chats and attend as many awesome events as I can, but you are right. Sometimes less is more. But speaking of more, here is the next one-word share. Take it away, Ellen.
Hi, Chris. This is Ellen Deem. I teach first grade in Charlotte, North Carolina. My Twitter handle is Deem_Ellen, and my one word for 2017 is light. I chose light because light gives insight, color, and perspective. Light shows the value in different points of view, and my goal is to share light with my students in PLN on a daily basis. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ellen. You have a great day, too, and Happy New Year. And I had the pleasure of meeting Ellen back at ISTE 2015. Our next one word comes from Jillian Judson.
My name is Jillian Judson, and I'm an educator in British Columbia, Canada. I'm on faculty at Simon Fraser University in the Faculty of Education, and my Twitter handle is @perfinker, Perfinker, because nobody just thinks. We always perceive and feel and think together. And my one word is collaboration, because it's a great source of learning and teaching and joy and hope and grit and balance, and it's everything I want and need from this great profession. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jillian, and stay warm up in Canada at this time of year. Next up, Megan Morgan.
My name is Megan Morgan, and you can follow me at Mrs. Megan Morgan. The word I picked for this year to focus on is matter. And the reason I picked that is I watched a Seth Godin video that really talked about how he took lesson after lesson of playing the clarinet, but he never really played the clarinet. And he realized that when he heard something as simple as that, because you need to play a note that matters. And I think of my experience in the past few years, and I've really kind of dug into doing the right things, doing the steps, doing the lessons, doing the studying. But this year I'm committing to creating things that matter more. And what that means is I'm going to care more and think about what I'm doing and the power it has, and to care deeply about what I do, as well as to be brave more and share things that may make people uncomfortable, and be brave enough to share and go out of my comfort zone even when I'm not ready yet. And so that's where I'm going. I think of my education, my teaching, and everything else in that way, that I'm going to be brave. I'm going to care more deeply about the things I do along that way.
Thank you, Megan. And I really liked your one word and what you feel about it, because I think it very much ties into my one word, which I will be sharing in just a couple of minutes. Next up, Mr. Noah Geisel.
Hey, House of EdTech. This is Noah Geisel at Senior G on the Twitter, calling you from Denver, Colorado. My one word for 2017 is and. As in, anytime I'm about to say the word but, I'm going to really try and substitute in the word and. I think that the word but can be a really harmful word to a lot of discussions. I think as soon as you say, that's a really good idea, but a lot of times the person with whom we're sharing that conversation doesn't really hear anything that comes after the word but, because they're going right into a defensive posturing. And I think that when we can validate people's ideas and add to them by using the word and in place of but, I think it can be a really effective way to just have productive conversations and build powerful relationships.
Thank you, Noah. I appreciate you sending that in. And I have only 3 more left to play. Now I turn it over to Rachel Murat, who is like the EdCamp traveler. I mean, if you're in an EdCamp, most likely you're going to see Rachel Murat there. So take it away, Rachel.
This is Rachel Murat calling. My Twitter handle is @Mrs. Murat, and I am a teacher and tech integrator from Endwell, New York. My one word 2017 is mindset, not only as a reminder that I need to be cognizant of mine, but also to help students develop their growth mindset.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I am also very much interested in mindset. And really, I feel like if I was going to do multi-word 2017, everything that's been shared so far and will be shared in the last 2 are definitely words that I would like to apply to my own existence. So, I don't know. I'm not going to edit out this little gap. Stacy Lindis, you are up next.
Hey, Chris Nessie. This is Stacy Lindis. I'm at iRunTech on Twitter, and my blog is iruntech.me. If you want to check out my one word for 2017, I do plan to write that post, but I'll let you know a sneak peek. My one word is balance. I've been reflecting on that word for quite some time. A lot of it I actually attribute to Dan Whalen, who talks about the EdTech balance and the tech work-life balance and the school work-life balance. And I've been thinking about it since March, but I decided to make it my word at the end of 2016 so that I can find balance between tech and analog. I'm very passionate about my analog tools, to find balance between my work and life, between my 2 boys, between passions that have gone to the wayside, and hopefully bring balance and bring them back into my world for 2017, things like running and quilting. So hopefully 2017 will be the year of balance, and I will let you know at the end of the year if you do a follow-up. Happy New Year to you and your listeners.
Happy New Year to you as well, Stacy. And yes, later in the year, I will definitely put the call back out to everybody here who has shared to see where you are at with your word. And thank you for calling me Chris Nessie, Stacy. I appreciate that. Now, you who is listening, please go bug Stacy on Twitter at iRunTech and just tell her to call me Chris. We're friends, and she's still silly like that. Last up, Miss Tracy Brady.
Hi, I'm calling in response to hashtag one word 2017. My name is Tracy Brady at MME Brady. I teach French and Spanish in Westchester County, New York. My one word is empathy, because I think that is where everything springs from. Relationships can't happen without empathy, and it's what we need to teach our students in order to empower them to change the world. Happy 2017. Happy New Year.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you to everybody who really in a short amount of time submitted some fantastic content and was willing to share it with you. Now, if you have one word, awesome. I would love to know it. And if you were inspired to choose one word, guess what? I still want to know it. So I'd love you to share your one word 2017 on your own blog or your Twitter account. Tag me, tag the House of EdTech, and be sure to use the hashtag one word 2017. And you can also throw it on the comments for the show notes of this episode, which is chrisnessie.com/77. And again, get your one word out there using the hashtag one word 2017. Before I transition, you would probably like to know what my one word is. And my one word for 2017 is pusher. Yep, pusher. Because it's what I do. And Stacy and AJ would agree with me. I am one who encourages you to do more. Just take a look at the fact that you're listening to this podcast where I try to push you to use technology because, as I say every episode, it's not difficult. Just try it. I've actually got some great stories that I'm going to save for future episodes about how I've pushed myself in the last couple of weeks with education technology and demonstrated not being afraid of technology, basically putting my money where my mouth is, so to speak. And that's what I do. I push. So when I get that tech coach position, or I'm the director of technology or the director of innovation, wherever life may take me here in 2017 and beyond, I am going to push you. And I do that with students. I would do that with you, where I'm not just going to walk you up to the edge of the cliff and, gently nudge you. I'm going to push you off and you are going to fly, or I will catch you. I promise. So my one word for 2017 is pusher. And again, I'd love to know what your one word is, and please share that accordingly. And this whole thing has been my EdTech thought. And the EdTech recommendation for this episode is PixieClip. What is it? PixieClip is an online canvas that lets you communicate using a webcam or a mic, and it allows you to just click record, and you're ready to go. PixieClip is your message in motion. You can upload images, draw sketches, and share the replays with anybody you want. It's similar to EduCreations, except this is web-based. So basically anywhere you can have access to a web browser, you can use you can use this like a whiteboard, and it's pretty cool. You can check it out at pixieclip.com, and that's PIXICLIP.com. And if you go and check it out and you try it, share your Pixie Clip with me. And that's my EdTech recommendation. And now it's time for the featured content of this episode, and we're going to be reviewing and recapping my time at New York EdTech Week back in December of 2016. I'd like to welcome back to the podcast Sierra Gritali. You might remember Sierra from episode number 74, which was how to get more women involved in STEM, and that was a great conversation that we had with Angela Cleveland and Saki Mehta, and that can be found at chrisnessy.com/74. But Sierra, you are back because in December, you and I had the privilege of attending New York EdTech Week back in December of 2016. So that was a 3-day event. We got to attend it for 2 days. What was the experience like for you?
As a student, I was super excited to be able to attend New York EdTech Week, especially as I'm aspiring to be in education and I have a passion for technology. My perspective was that I was very surprised to see a lack of educators at the conference and not a lot of enthusiasm for engaging educators at the conference.
I had made the same comment to you when we were there because, obviously being a high school teacher, and obviously with a podcast like this, being passionate about education and technology and really being a teacher first, there were no teachers there. But I think that comes from, the tickets were $900, which we didn't have to pay for. Full disclosure.
But there just seemed to be a disconnection between actually understanding educators and understanding education overall. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was amazing companies there and startups and innovations, but there's still a bit of a lack, and I think that really stems from the lack of educators there.
Coming up later in this episode, I do have the audio clips that we were able to record from a couple of the different companies that we had the opportunity to sit down with, and again, they were amazing companies, but I agree with you. There was a huge disconnect. I mean, we went to the first panel. These ed tech companies were asking questions of these panelists, and I was like, Sierra, I should be up there. I should be on the other side. I should be answering these questions because, as I like to say, I'm in the trenches. And no disrespect to the people who were on the panels, bright minds, brilliant minds, but we're talking to superintendents, deans of education from other universities. They are so far removed from the classroom, and really a lot of these companies are looking to get into K-12 education, and there should have been the K-12 voice there. So I think we're on the same page with that.
Right. And seeing how smart and, like you said, bright individuals, and just I was able to see how passionate they were about what they were doing and, bringing technology into education. And all I could think about was how even more incredible it would be if you had both perspectives, because teachers know what they need and these companies know what they can provide. And it would just be a totally different atmosphere. And I feel like it would just, be an amazing collaboration.
It would be a totally amazing collaboration. But I think the main thing, and again, you figure you're an EdTech company. If you're any company, you want, your goal is to make money. The mission may be to help and impact student learning, but you want to make money. I don't want to say that that's what this conference was about. I mean, but it was about the companies being able to get exposure and, promote their services and their products. Not like going to an expo, but like, hey, we're startups. And I think that's something we do need to highlight, is the fact that this was like a think tank, and there were like Shark Tank experiences for these companies to pitch and talk about what they provide. And they are looking for investors because they're in the beginning stages of existing. What are your thoughts on that part of it?
I do see that point of view, and especially because I think we went in thinking that it would be really educator focused, that we would see a lot of other educators there.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be high profile. I just, again, that other part of it.
Yeah. So with that, I do see why they made it very focused on, like you said, making money and appealing to investors. At the same time, though, watching a lot of the pitches, it kind of seemed as if they never really spoke much about what they were doing or have done in the classrooms and how they've engaged with educators. Maybe I don't know enough about Think Tank to say whether or not they should have included that. But yeah, I feel like that would have been something that they could have said to investors, and, to make it more, more proof that it really would help and is helping if it's, already implemented.
If you spent time in the classroom and now you are starting a startup, obviously you saw a problem, you saw a need, and that sparked you to be innovative. So definitely that should be part of what these companies do. And there was one company in a panel that asked, should we be looking to hire teachers to join our company? I don't know necessarily you want to hire teachers, and a lot of teachers would leave the classroom to work for an EdTech company. Some might. I might do it for the right price. I'll put that out there. But definitely consult and talk with educators, have like ambassador programs. And I've been fortunate for a couple of companies to have been on a Google Hangout or a Skype call and have them just say, hey, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. You are in the classroom, you work with students, and that input is very valuable.
Yeah, and I remember as we were going around interviewing companies, not many of them had a backstory, like you said, their story of where they got where they were, except I remember this one did, and it was really, it really stuck with me because they spoke about how they saw this gap because of their own education and what they felt was lacking when they were in school. And then they started off by just making up some content and putting it into schools.
What did you think of the performances? Because they had the African tribe, the drumming circle at the beginning, and then they also had some NYU students, again, because this was at NYU, doing some Broadway songs. I'll make it simple. So what did you think of the arts aspect?
I mean, you're talking to me. I am like the biggest theater geek that's unable to sing, dance, act, perform in any capacity. So I loved it. I love that. I thought it was great. It was a great touch to, it was at NYU, and NYU is notoriously known for their performing arts. So to have that little piece of NYU at this conference was great. I loved it. What'd you think?
I was more into the Broadway stuff because, again, I have the theater geek background, not so much the African drumming circle, but I could appreciate it. And I mean, those performers were intense, and the choreography was really great. The music was good. So I don't have any complaints about that. It was enjoyable. And again, like you said, it added something that I've never seen at any other conference I've been to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I thought it was really unique. It was memorable. At first I was confused how it fit in, but I thought it was just really cool. I think that's why it was there.
And I really appreciated the different speakers that they had before they did the pitches there on the first day. Oh, again, that's where you see a lot of those brilliant minds. The chancellor for New York City Public Schools, what I would say was one of the highlights. Was there anyone that stood out to you?
Yeah, the chancellor was great. I loved listening to her. And as someone that's aspiring to go into education, of course, I'm like searching for the state that I want to be in and where I want to teach, and getting that perspective on what they're doing in New York public schools, and seeing that as a vision that I thought wasn't there yet. You never really hear about what's happening in New York. Maybe it's because I'm not in education yet. But that's really inspiring, and seeing someone do that, it's just incredible. I feel like the message that she was giving, and on behalf of everyone in New York City, and New York public school system, that really showed. It really, it was really, the passion was there, and it was really inspiring.
Sierra, to go back, as I check our notes here, there was actually some K-12 involvement, and a New Jersey superintendent who I've had the opportunity to meet and speak with prior to this was also here on one of the panels, and that was Dr. Adam Freed. He's a New Jersey superintendent, and I have maybe 14 minutes of great audio because he was on a panel. So that's a clip coming up, but I would say he was the closest to in the trenches education, but besides me, but he had a more prominent role in the whole thing. So I do need to shout out Dr. Freed, and there will be some audio coming up a little bit later from a conversation I got to have with him because I knew he would be there and had the opportunity to chat with him.
And vocabulary, they gave a great performance. Backstory, I know one employee from vocabulary was on your show recently, right?
Yes, Emily Gover.
Right. And so I've heard of them briefly in passing, and they're, correct me if I'm wrong, but they create content and raps to engage students in learning, and to put it, shortly. And
they bring together hip hop and education.
Awesome. But when I was in school, I never had that. And I was like, oh, I learned my content. Like, how great can they be, and when they did a performance, and I was blown away. I could not believe how amazing they were. And I knew it worked because at the end of the rap, I memorized the content. So that's how I knew, if it's working for someone who's in college and learning, stuff that I learned back in 3rd grade, and now it's memorized in my head when I never remembered it. I thought it was awesome. That's something, I intend to one day implement in my classrooms.
Well, you set yourself up for this. What was the content, and what do you remember?
It was the Earth's core, and it was talking about the mantle, the inner core, and outer core. That was definitely the wrong order, but I went from, inside to out.
Well, I'll put that video, if I can get it, I should be able to. I will include that in the show notes for this episode, which will, just to reset a little bit, at chrisnessy.com/77. We will include the vocabulary Layers of the Earth rap video, which was sung by one of the OGs of vocabulary.
Right. And I believe he was actually a principal and a teacher previously, too. So he has a lot of experience in education.
Yeah, he looked way younger than I did and has done a whole lot more than I have.
Yeah, I believe Ike Ramos is his name. I'm not sure.
I can double check that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really, really great. It was amazing. Their passion was really, was really contagious.
And I'll just throw this out there. Emily Gover, if you're listening, please contact Sierra. She wants to work for vocabulary a little bit.
Shameless plug, but very.
And I'm not taking that out. And I had the mobile house of EdTech set up. So the iPad had the microphone, the USB cable, the camera kit. So I was all hooked up and, could do my thing.
It's so funny because you see like people recording stuff, for news channels and such, and they have gigantic cameras and big recorders and such and huge microphones, and then you're just walking around with a headset, like headphones,
earbuds. I had earbuds.
A little iPad and a microphone, and I think your microphone was like the highest tech that you were holding.
Well, I mean, the iPad was more expensive than the microphone.
Oh yeah, fair. Yeah.
This microphone's only about $70.
But I thought that was great. And then it sounds great regardless, but and then everyone was surprised when you said, I just have my iPad and that's it.
Yeah. I got to talk to, and again, these conversations are coming up, just after I'm done with you, Sierra, with two of the founders of New York EdTech Week, and obviously all the different companies that I got the opportunity to speak to. So before I let you go, your big, what did you learn closure takeaway from this experience?
So I never really knew there was a huge EdTech sphere. I don't really know where I thought EdTech came from. I kind of just thought it just happened. But it's really, really great to see people getting into the EdTech field, for any reason at all, because it's just, it's amazing. Technology has the ability to completely change education. And, I'm the biggest advocate for that. And it's so inspiring and so great to see these companies do this. And it was really great to learn about this whole EdTech field and actually know that it exists.
I'm glad you learned that. And I actually, believe it or not, learned a lot of the same things, because this was a side of education technology that I had never been exposed to. The closest thing I had come to would be attending ISTE in 2015 in Philadelphia, where, I walked the expo floor, or if I've been to the NJEA conference and you have companies there exhibiting, and I typically avoid them because they're trying to sell me stuff, and I'm a teacher, I have no money. So, but this was a completely different side of it, because these are the companies, and again, there were a couple there that I've seen, and, they're young startups, but they've been in the space for, a couple of years. And then you have some of these companies that are really, brand new, wet behind the ears, looking to literally start it up. And it was just interesting to see these innovative ideas, and there was no shortage of good ideas. There were some ideas that didn't apply to me and what I do, but the niche and the audience that they're targeting, there are some great new ideas on the horizon for a lot of things. And the other big takeaway was the fact that I got to expose you to all of this, which was, makes a teacher proud.
Oh, it was awesome. Thank you so much for bringing me.
And since I will let you go, you have other things to do, and I have the rest of the show to produce. Again, where can people connect with you and, learn from you and get to know you?
So I would suggest just sending me, tweeting at me at Sierra Gratali, and we can chat.
And go to her website, sierragratali.com, because now she has to keep working on it. And if you have any advice for her, tweet her and let her know what she can add and include on her budding website.
Yes, I would love suggestions.
Sierra, thank you for a few minutes here to reflect on New York EdTech Week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And before we move on with the rest of the show, I want to give a big thank you to Jeff Yamaguchi at Jeff Yamaguchi on Twitter. Jeff is the reason that Sierra and I were able to go to New York EdTech Week. So thank you, Jeff. You can connect with him on Twitter. He is at Jeff Yamaguchi, YAMAGUCHI, and his website is jeffreyyamaguchi.com, and there'll be links to both of those in the show notes for this episode. So now I have some great audio from the event, and I'm going to kick it off with the two co-founders in separate conversations. First up, we have my conversation with Ash Kaluarachi. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I am back on the floor here at New York EdTech Week, and I'm here with the co-producer of New York EdTech Week, and he's also the co-founder of the StartEd Accelerator, and I'm here with Ash Kaluarachi. Ash, welcome to the House of EdTech.
Good to be here, Chris.
Now, I only have 2 minutes of your time, so I will make this quick. Where was New York EdTech Week born?
I think it was really born just around the corner. We is NYU Steinhardt, that's Dom Brewer, and Jonathan Harbour, my co-founder, had this wacky idea that New York could be the center for education innovation globally. And in thinking about how we do that, we decided that getting people together who care about solving the world's education issues, and also bringing together the intellect that is the most valued to teach other people about what we do, would be the solution. And that turned out to look like an accelerator, incubator, and New York EdTech Week.
Now, based on your background, why education?
Well, I think I've always been a non-traditional educator most of my life, but I think it really started when my mom had a school for 300 kids, and she taught speech and drama and elocution out of our home in Sri Lanka for the majority of my first 20 years on this earth.
And I just have two more questions. One, what do you think has been the most successful part of New York EdTech Week this year?
I would say the mashing up of what makes New York great, and I think that's the creativity in music and the sheer showiness of New York performers with the creativity and tenacity of startup founders. And bringing that together and producing it has been a privilege.
I agree. I enjoyed the artistic part yesterday. It was fantastic. And so one last thing, how can my listeners connect with you and learn more about you, what you do, and how maybe they can get involved?
They're welcome to follow us on all the major social media. We're at Started Excel on Twitter. We're at New York EdTech Week, and also we're at www.startedaccelerator.com as well as www.newyorkedtechweek.com.
Ash, thank you so much for a few minutes here on the House of EdTech.
Thank you, Chris.
Great conversation there in just a couple of minutes with Ash. And let's roll right into my conversation with the other co-founder, Mr. Jonathan Harbour. And I'm here with Jonathan Harbour, who is basically the man, the co-founder, the man, the myth, the legend here at New York EdTech Week. And he's been gracious enough to give me 2 minutes or less of his time. So, Jonathan, first, welcome to the House of EdTech podcast.
Thank you. I think I'm mostly the myth. I don't know about the rest of it, but nice to be here.
Thank you so much. So I talked with one of the other co-founders, Ash, and one of the questions I asked him was, where was the event born out of? So from your perspective, why do we have New York EdTech Week?
Sure. Well, maybe I'll start with why we created StartEd. StartEd was created with the goal of attracting and developing the best edtech entrepreneurs to solve the world's most critical education problems. Why is that important? We spend $6 trillion a year in learning from early childhood to workforce development, yet we still have large gaps in achievement. We have discrepancies in the cost of education. We have restricted access in many parts of the world and varying degrees of efficacy. Technology has been a huge contributor in other industries on all of those fronts, and we think education is the next big one. Out of that $6 trillion, about $100 billion is spent towards the digitization of these services, which we call EdTech. So we created StartEd towards that mission, and we've partnered with NYU Steinert with a theory of action that if we galvanize a community of education innovation, that's our best way to accomplish that. So together, as part of galvanizing that community, we've created a physical space for EdTech companies we call an incubator, where there are professors, companies, and programs. We have an accelerator program, which is a 3-month intensive boot camp led by mentors. And then we've created New York EdTech Week as a global festival to celebrate education innovation.
And it is truly a celebration. Now, since I only have a little bit of your time, let me ask you this. You've seen a lot of EdTech startups and seen a lot of great innovation. If you were a middle school or high school student today, what would excite you most as a student that you've seen?
Well, I have a few children. One of them just finished, actually is now in high school. What would excite me most, from what I've seen in general, again, kids, it's kind of like a fabulous question if you're talking to a high schooler, is to ask them what the Yellow Pages is, and then explain to them that it was a book that we used to look up people's phone numbers and experience the bewilderness on their face. So when we say what's the most significant thing for a middle schooler or a high schooler today, it's that these aren't questions. This is natural to them. We as adults and sometimes in the industry think that what we're doing is revolutionary, but it actually isn't. It's evolutionary. So as I see the dexterity that my kids have and that other kids have in just using technology, not just in their lives, but also in school, the way they organize their day, the way they communicate back and forth with teachers, the way they interact with their peers, the way they consume content, the way they use it to prepare their own thoughts, the way they use it as creativity tools to create, whether that be presentations or papers or performances. What's most interesting to me, frankly, is the evolution, that these are natural and not surprising.
So 2 more things before I let you go, and the last one's real easy. But first, what does the future hold, in your opinion, for this event? What's coming in 2017, 2018, and beyond?
Well, I like to think that this is Fashion Week for EdTech. So what is Fashion Week? Fashion Week is a time where there's not one event, but there's one place, and where people come from around the world, whether you are trying to show off what's new, what your innovations are, or whether you're looking for the innovation. So that's what we would like to do, is think of New York as a global destination once a year where education innovators come to both be recognized as well as to discover. And what we've noticed in general in terms of innovation, if we look, for example, at Silicon Valley, creating an ecosystem where you have entrepreneurs, investors, clients, talent, all seamlessly working together, that's really what we're trying to do. So to bring those communities together, I'd like to see in New York that EdTech Week continues also to leverage the infrastructure of New York City. We do have the world's, or certainly the country's largest school district, largest community college network. The publishers have their headquarters here, education publishers. We have the biggest early learning brands. We have the people from HR departments of some of the largest corporate training groups, and we have 2 million students who live here. So we think of that as a infrastructure hub. So when people come to New York for New York EdTech Week, in addition to the programming taking place here, we will continue to have what we call these open labs. So this week we had a professor of architecture who did a tour of the transportation hub at the World Trade Center and talked about education of sustainable and resilient architecture. We, for example, have museums that some of our companies work with. So the idea would be that there'd be events going on across New York, bringing the best of New York as an open education market and an open education institution, really, together with that ecosystem.
So last thing, how can people connect with you to either get involved with New York EdTech Week or just to learn more from you?
Certainly. Well, we welcome, for New York EdTech Week next year, we welcome first people who would be interested in joining our host committee. We had a large host committee that worked to think about the event and to help to plan it. We have companies who do sponsor it. This really is something that couldn't happen without the support of sponsors. We certainly hope people will come and if you have an idea of a company, apply to present. If you're an angel investor anywhere in the world and perhaps have never invested in an education or edtech company but think you might like to learn, we'd like to come and convert you to be an edtech investor. So either at NewYorkEdTechWeek.com or if you're a company that may be interested in an accelerator program, go to StartedAccelerator.com, or if you're an angel investor, also StartedAccelerator.com. We'd love to meet you.
Jonathan Harber, thank you so much for a couple of minutes of your time.
It's my pleasure.
So I got to be honest, I never thought that when I made connections with Jeff Yamaguchi to go and be able to record an interview that I would get to speak with two guys like Ash and Jonathan. So two great conversations. And again, if it's something you're interested in, pass this on to somebody you know who may own a company, get them connected with Ash and Jonathan. And there are good things happening in the education technology space. The next conversation I'd like to share, I got to sit down with Superintendent of Schools from Harrington Park, New Jersey, Dr. Adam Freed. Okay, I am back here on the floor at NY EdTech Week, and I am now sitting on a cushy white bench with Dr. Adam Freed. He is the Superintendent of Schools in Harrington Park, New Jersey, and he's got an interesting role, not just being a superintendent and caretaker of a few hundred, or if not 1,000 kids. He's involved here with NYU and Start Ed and the think tank and all these wonderful things that are happening. So, good morning, Dr. Freed. How are you?
Good morning, Chris. It's great to see you today.
I was very happy because when I got involved to be able to come here, I didn't see anybody who was a K-12 education, and I got here for free, and then I found out, you're heavily involved. So, what is your role here with New York EdTech Week?
Yeah, great. So that kind of all started 3 years ago. We saw a need in our own space. We were seeing way too many legacy providers trying to create good EdTech, and as a district, we felt we needed to challenge that. So I was able to kind of reach out to some of the New York City accelerator groups, and basically what we did 3 years ago was create a mini cluster inside of the district that allows young startup companies to come in, pitch, and then match make them with staff so that the relationship gets built from a bottom-up perspective. And over the course of the last 3 years, I've been blessed to ask to speak on panels about that process and where we think we're being successful in changing the space and, even changing the procurement process, like how things are bought and, how are things reviewed. So it's been a great 3 years, and I think, Start Ed and 4.0 schools and, the New York EdTech Week is just a great place to kind of learn and be a part of something.
Now I have to ask, you said 3 years ago this came about for you being a school leader. Where did the idea come from? What made you say, I should pursue something like this?
Yeah, I'm up a lot at 2 a.m., and I've actually curtailed my emails to staff and my administrative team, but they lovingly know, I have a line, if we're not evolving, we're dying. That's what science is about for me. And I knew we needed to evolve as a school district. I firmly believe in my lead team. That was created 10 years ago when I first got into district. We created professional learning communities out of that ecosystem. It's basically my skunk works. If you're a military kind of geek like I am, skunk works is where all the creative and fun things in the world come out of. So I needed to create a group like that. And I remember bringing this to them, and they were empowered to see this. And we bring in these young startups, and they Shark Tank them harder than any administrator would. And I love that part of that. And it empowers my staff to do better things. So for the last 3 years, we've seen that. And now that team has now integrated it into our, we call a self-directed growth plan model, which is our observation evaluation process, which is now a state-approved program. So we're allowed to get startups that can help create great data, help my staff in their SDGP, which is a thesis, and we believe we're going to get better data qualitatively and quantitatively, and in turn get better practice and craft from that. So it all kind of interconnects, Chris. I have to tell you, if it doesn't, we as a team don't do it. We create too many silos as public educators, and that's part of our problem. And we have a lot of nouns, right? There's a lot of things. I was talking about it downstairs regarding, 3D printers and this and that. Those are things. It's really the practice and craft, which is the action, the verb, is really what I'm looking to create. So I think that's where this has all kind of come from, and it's been evolving over these last 3 years.
Now, when you make comments like that, it makes it really easy for me to transition. So you had the opportunity to speak on a panel here this morning. What was the panel about, and what were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, so the panel was on basically the products, right? What are we looking in the K-12 space for? And for me, that's different than my other panelists, right? Two of them were venture capitalist funds, so they're looking at it from a different lens and a different perspective, where I'm looking from how do I disrupt the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So for me, it's looking, okay, this product will help me get to this piece, right? And for me, it's, blended learning, personalized learning, breaking down the 7 hours and 9 minutes, right? We lovingly like to say that all learning does not occur in 7 hours and 9 minutes. That's a school day, right? It's 24/7, 365 days a year. How do we move and migrate to that space? And you can't just do that. Staff aren't ready, curriculum isn't ready, content isn't there. So I'm looking for products that will help me get there. And they might not be totally 100% ready. They might have 4 wheels and an engine, but the doors are a little rickety and the windows might not roll down. And our goal is to jump on with those great groups, support them, help them grow, and in 3 to 5 years, we see better growth inside of that space, that blended learning model.
Now, over the last 3, now coming into 4 years, being involved in this type of forward thinking, which company have you seen go from rickety doors and, engine tape duct together to they are a high-flying EdTech company now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And you know what? I always say there's different facing groups, right? There are some office-facing solutions that are lights out that I love. The first group, 2 first groups that I would talk about is Class Wallet. Class Wallet is a great business office solution, and you go, wow, that's so simple. It talks about student funds and accounts like that, field trips and things like that, and you go, oh my God, that's like such a low-hanging fruit. But every one of us brings that brown envelope down to the office because it has to be by code 24 hours, right? And it looks like a bag of nickels, and it's a nightmare. But for us, what we've done is Class Wallet digitizes it, creates a Class Wallet for each staff member. So it's not just field trips, but even your money that we allocate to you. We zero-based budget my staff, so you build your own budget. I don't give it to you. I want you to have empowerment to that. If I give you $500, you're going to spend $500. So the Class Wallet we then fund your wallet, and you go spend. We're not checking you. That's not what professional educators do. We empower you to do those things. So Class Wallet's a great one, and they're here today. Learn Trials is another group. Learn Trials is a great place. It's a digitized report card, almost like an assessment of who you are as a community, as a district, because we don't know what's being used in the classroom sometimes. And what this does is help us grade out and bubble up things that are really working well, and it also gets us the opportunity to say, you know what, this system is not being used at all. And it cost me $10,000 per year. Guess what? I've got $10,000 now to spend on new programs or new staff, right? Do you see it? That's in New Jersey, working on that 2% piece. That's a huge issue for us. So we're pretty excited about those different models. And there's others. LessonCast this year, they're now helping us digitize our entire SDGP process. They are a startup group a couple of years ago, and now are really taking off. We're excited to see them grow. It feels like part of the family, Chris. That's really what it's about.
So in the last day, or say this last year that you've been involved with a lot of these newer companies, any predictions on who the next high flyer will be?
That's great. Well, I spoke about it on my panel. I think AdmitMe and Trovit are there when they talk about personalized portfolios for students at the high school level. I think the big disruption at the college level needs to occur in the sense that our kids are really good at A to B. They've figured out the game. They know how to, get to Cornell, get to Harvard, get to Brown, because they know if I do this, this, and this. The question is when they do this, this, and this, and that doesn't occur. That's where the health and wellness piece is coming in for us. We're seeing those kids now then not have that perseverance and grit that we need them to have. And I really don't think it's the best model when it comes to SAT prep and AP prep, and these kids have already taken those courses before they even walked in the door. So it's not a true assessment of who Adam Fried is or Chris is. So I think the portfolio piece is there, and if it disrupts the college level and then disrupts the high school level, wow, that'll be very powerful, because then we'll see better product, and then it'll change practice too. Staff will change their practice. We're going to see the trickle-down effect of that. So it's not about just scoring a 3 or better on an AP. It's does this fit into my portfolio, and what that means to me for MIT or for NYU or for Stanford. So I think those groups that are out there starting the disruption, and that might be 3 to 5 years out, will be some big players in the game.
Excellent. I know I do want to talk to Trovit. I actually got an email from them specifically, or from maybe a PR firm that represents them a couple of weeks ago, and I've familiarized myself with the platform, and yeah, definitely there's something disrupting about it. Now, anytime I've had a superintendent on the House of EdTech, they've never been a backwards-thinking, stuck-in-the-mud educational leader. So you continue the tradition of being forward-thinking by leaps and bounds, I might add. But I need to ask you this. How do you, as a North Jersey superintendent, influence and impact your superintendent colleagues, and how do you change their mindset?
Great question. So when we started the microcluster inside of the school district, I knew that was a place I could grow. So this past year and a half, we've developed the Northern Ignite cluster. It's an innovation cluster with 76 school districts in Bergen County. This past summer, we had applications go out for 5 different cohorts. We have cohort leaders, teacher leaders, that's what I like to call thought leaders, that are leading these different cohorts on STEM, maker and tinker space, one-to-world, and blended learning. And what we've done is we've created these little mini networks, and they're meeting on both virtually and in person. We're using our Slack channels as part of that conversation, and we're sharing best practices. The future for us is in the next year is to develop the fellowship model. What I would believe is if we can get people that are at master level, let's say in a blended learning piece, and they've got something to give, it's my responsibility as a superintendent to give another district 5 days of that staff member, that master level teacher. And in kind, I'm going to get 5 days back on one-to-world, right? What are we doing with this? I'm an agnostic space. I don't care if you're a Chromebook or an Apple. You turn on, I get out to the web, and I can work. That's how companies work, you know? So I believe that's our future, and that's where these conversations are happening. And if you look at all my teacher leaders, none of them are superintendents. They are all thought leaders from those sub-levels, and I think that's where the bubble up is going to occur. And we're really excited to see how this plays out over the next 48 months.
Dr. Freed, thank you so much for taking some time to talk about popping bubbles in education. How can people connect with you?
If you want, you can reach me at freed@hpsd.org or my Twitter handle at AdamDFreed. You can hit me up, as we say where I'm from, and I'd love to connect with anyone. I think that's part of this conversation. Leaning into it is connecting, and that's being inclusive. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sir, and I will talk to you soon. Yeah, so you have to connect with Dr. Freed. He is awesome. He's actually AJ's superintendent. If you remember, AJ's been on the show a number of times, and he was actually appeared earlier in this episode. So AJ does vouch for Dr. Freed as well. 2 more conversations left to share with you from my New York EdTech Week experience. And this is with the CEO and founder of a company called 3D Bear. Still here at New York EdTech Week in Lower Manhattan, I now have the privilege of bringing on to the podcast Kristo Lehtonen, and that is my best Finnish accent, as Kristo is from Finland. He is the co-founder and CEO of 3D Bear, and they make 3D printing into child's play. Welcome to the House of EdTech, Kristo.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
So what is 3D Bear?
Well, 3D Bear started out of the observation we made that a lot of 3D printers are going into classrooms at the moment. But teachers had a problem. It was too difficult for them to use the technology. And secondly, they didn't have the pedagogic content they needed. And that's the problem we are solving for them. What we have also now done is that we've introduced augmented reality and virtual reality, I believe, as the very first company in the world to combine all these 3 in the classroom in working apps that start with pedagogy. So that has been now kind of the next frontier we've done. And how this works is that in very concrete terms, so teachers have these gamified apps, if you will, and they run on a smartphone or tablet or desktop or basically almost any device. And there is the curriculum of the school or municipal level or national level curriculum has been integrated into the app. So we have K-12 and STEM focus. And there you might have then an engaging math exercise whereby you model, for example, a heart, or maybe cell structure, or maybe DNA, or maybe you 3D model your own room. You can do this with the help of your finger on a tablet, or maybe with the help of VR glasses. So you actually, with moving your head, you can 3D model something. And then you can 3D print the model. And that actually, it creates a whole new level to learning. Because what happens is that students are able to iterate, try out something, print it out. Maybe they don't get it right the first time, then they do it again. A multi-sensual approach, and they end up solving extremely complex problems. And what we have noticed that this has been especially effective with what one could call maybe underprivileged kids. So kids who might normally find traditional math lectures difficult. So when we, for example, incorporated 3D printing into this, has been extremely powerful. Let me give you an example. Golden ratio. That's a mathematical concept that is fairly complex for at least for some people. And what we've created is a learning environment, a gamified learning environment, where the students solve problems and they can 3D print what we call golden ratio caliber. That is a tool that you can actually use to make something that is fairly complex in math terms to something that is very concrete. And then you can try out if the figure, the heart, or maybe the temple that you've designed, maybe your room, whether you are able to design it using the golden ratio principle. So these types of learning modules, they actually go across different school subjects. But what we try to do always is to integrate it very carefully with what the teachers need. So that because they are quite often measured against certain standards or requirements, we need to be able to help the teachers so that they can add value in the classroom. So the one thing that we really pride ourselves for is that we start with the pedagogy. So we go pedagogy first. We do not go technology first.
No, and I think that's a valuable thing because, again, too often companies will focus on here's our shiny new tool and our very great app, but what's the foundation? So to know that a company like yours is concerned about what's being taught, the content, and then we're going to enhance that with things like the 3D printing and the app, that's fantastic. For teachers that are listening that want to either say to their administrator or learn more about this, where do they go and how can they connect with you?
So if you are interested in, as a teacher, in trying this out, please go to our webpage, 3dbear.io, and there you can find also the trial account, or just shoot us an email and we will certainly be able to fix so that you can try it out. All the content we have developed so far, we have done with the help of what we call the best experts in the world, the teachers in Finland. But right now we have just started in New York. So next we have now a person here locally who can help them to set up something in your school nearby, and we will also be coming down to US early next year several times. So we'll certainly be able to then to get that going in your classroom.
Now, I will say, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't, New Jersey is very close to New York, and that's where I'm at. So please come to New Jersey.
We'd love to come to New Jersey as well.
Awesome. Thank you for a few minutes, Christo. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Such a nice guy to talk to, and the more I've looked into 3D Bear, the more I like it. So hopefully, Christo, hopefully you're listening to this because I shared it with you. When you come back stateside, let's get together and, come out to Jersey. I'll take you to a diner and get you some pork roll and some disco fries. And my last conversation from New York EdTech Week is with a company called HoET077, and I believe they were mentioned when I had Katie Ann Wilson on the podcast when we talked about augmented reality. So here's a continuation and a little more expansion on that directly from HoET077. And I am still here on the floor at New York EdTech Week, and I am now having the opportunity to sit down with a company who I got to see their pitch yesterday during the Shark Tank portion. It was one of the more dynamic presentations, and it hits on something we've talked about previously here on the show, which is augmented reality. So I'm very happy to introduce Adam and Paolo from AugThat, and we're going to talk to Adam first and find out what AugThat is. So, Adam, welcome to the House of EdTech, and what is AugThat?
Thank you. So AugThat is an augmented reality company that is providing augmented reality for education and for learning. We are enhancing students' engagement through the utilization of everything that they use on a daily basis, the smart device, tablet, phone, to bring real-world and computer-generated experiences to make it come alive. The same way that Pokemon Go has reached out to 45 million students a day, or Snapchat, 249 million users a day. Well, we're doing the same concept in the classroom and bringing that technology into the classroom to make it more fun, engaging, and a powerful tool for them.
Now, prior to hitting record, it was brought up that you have 18 years of experience in education. Just go into a little bit more detail about your background.
So as a middle school teacher, my main focus was engaging students and searching for those tools that are the most important tools to, day after day, we're looking at how our lessons are, and it gets more and more stricter to what we have to teach and how we have to teach it. And I was struggling to get through that boring content. And I looked at the different platforms, different technologies, softwares that were out there, and I saw augmented reality, and I was like, this is definitely a powerful tool. So I started utilizing different platforms, and I realized that teachers will not use it. It will not work because it's too difficult to do, and there are too many buttons that have to get pressed. So knowing that and seeing how a classroom really worked and the time management issue, I created AugThat on that basis to make it easy for the teacher. We have one of the largest contents of augmented reality images, so teachers can just choose the image they want to tie automatically into their lesson. Our virtual scavenger hunt allows students to be able to move around the classroom, engage with the classroom, and actively socialize and learn, which is what we're about. We're facilitating lessons as teachers, and the teachers are using a higher order thinking to be able to come up with their own answers, their own hypothesis, and be able to prove that.
Now, Adam, you gave a great demonstration, and you showed us, dinosaurs and the solar system, and you put us on Mars. What I was really impressed with was the fact that I didn't need any additional hardware. So was that an important decision to just make it where you could pick up the device and go as a kid and as a teacher?
So that was one of the major reasons of why creating the app the way we did. First off, there's so many cool technology. There's just a lot. There's a lot out there that's just amazing and it's expensive. And as a teacher, with the $75 that we may get a year and show receipts, well, I wouldn't even be able to buy the nose pad to make sure that the glass that I'm going to spend probably half my salary on fits right. So we had to make it so that it was cost effective. It was something that was easily accessible. And that's the reason why all they need is the tablet in the school or a smart device at home. We're creating those virtual experiences without the eyewear and the hardware, which we know we can't afford.
Is AugThat a free app or is it a paid app? What's the pricing structure, if any?
So AugThat is a free app to download. Teachers, schools, content providers, museums, and publishers would purchase or license out the content through AugThat. And our own intellectual reader picks up our content, which I have to tell you, on a teacher perspective, is very important. So teachers that know augmented reality and have used it, well, they don't realize that the other platforms out there are kind of unsafe. And what I mean by that is, so if we look at an Erasmus or another type of company, it's a platform, public channels, and they can create these images. That's great, but I'm the teacher. I create let's just say I was doing a lesson on Coca-Cola and the making of Coca-Cola. So I decide to augment the Coca-Cola can. Well, there's about 5,000 other people who use that same logo to create other experiences. right? So as a teacher, I worked so hard on showing how Coca-Cola is packaged, bottled, sent out, and this great video, right? And we've spent hours doing that. Well, these kids are so savvy that they look through the channels and they find other Coca-Cola logos, other channels to scan, and unfortunately, somebody else created that same logo, that same can, brings it home to their mom, and on it is, well, we know how society is and what they put on things. It's inappropriate. So for the safety of the teacher, our app is strictly our content. You cannot scan anything else, and it only picks up what we program and code in. So it's safe, secure, and it's being looked at by an educational team to make sure that any content is academically sound.
Now, with that, and I think that's very important, and safety and protecting our students is truly valuable. Are there any plans, or is there a vision on how you could change the ability to give the creation power to the teachers?
So we will. Right now, we're still in the looking at how to make it easy for a teacher to be able to create. We do have what's called the Teach Connect. It's in a beta mode. It is still too complicated. I'm trying to make sure that, and that's something that I would look for probably by the end of the year, is a teacher creation tool that is just truly easy and, cuts the time down. We don't have time as teachers. You're too busy worrying about getting through your lessons, getting through the lesson planning, making sure you're on time. You have tests coming up. Your administrators are on top of you about where are you on your curriculum map. So until we actually have that product that is so streamlined and so easy to use that a teacher can do like 3 buttons and they're done, it is in the works. We will have something probably by the end of the year.
Good to know. And one last question, and I'll ask it of both of you, and I'll start with you, Paolo, since I rudely ignored you for most of this. What is your favorite experience that That offers? So, I mean, you showed us the dinosaurs and the under the sea. Think of your whole catalog. What is your personal favorite experience?
That's a good question. So, backing up, we have the largest library of content for AR, for education purposes, right? Out of the portfolio that we have, I think the one thing that I love showing people is the image of a brain, right? So it's a 2D image of a brain, and put yourself in the seat of like an aspiring MD or a nurse or someone in the medical field. There's very limited information that you can see from a 2D picture, right? If we put that through our platform and it scans through a 3D image, you could actually have the brain rise up off the sheet. So what that does is it caters to me specifically because I'm a visual learner. I love to take a look at all angles, just manipulate it with my hands, move around. It's kind of that spatial cognitive learning experience that provides myself and everyone that I know. I think that really stands out, and that kind of that hints at the many applications that we could put AR into, specifically in the medical, board preparation industry or any kind of career readiness, if that makes sense. Yeah, but the brain, which I'd love to show you after this, it does absolutely pop out.
Very cool. And again, since I've got your attention now, how did you get involved with That? And just briefly, what is your background?
Sure. My background, I'm a former Wall Street trader. I traded derivatives and energy in Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C. After that, I consulted on the Hill with the former deputy chief of staff. 2 years ago, I made a pivot into educational technology. Being on Wall Street and on the Hill, you kind of build a pretty diverse, strong Rolodex, and you're exposed to a plethora of industries that you could dive into just because you have your constituents in there. 2 years ago, Adam and I connected via LinkedIn, LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. We started just exploring synergies. We discussed our specific companies at that time, and we found that there's a lot of similarities. What impressed me about Adam is that he absolutely knows the educational field so well that I think of him as a mad genius. He knows everything in that field. I think we come up with a good complement as a team because I come up with the strategy, operational side, and Adam comes in with to genius. That's how we met.
Very cool. So let me finish this up with the mad genius. So Adam, same final question. From the whole catalog, what is your favorite OGThat experience?
All of them.
Yes, folks, he took the easy way out. and I will let him do that. But no, actually, it looks like he wants to be more specific.
I'll be more specific. So the reason why I say all of them is because each one, now our library is over 2,600 three-dimensional objects. We have over 350 360 virtual environments. And we have ELA and math lessons that are for grades K to 8. But our virtual scavenger hunt, which is amazing, where it's taking like that database questioning, higher order thinking, taking different parts and being able to take the small pieces and put it together. And the reason why we have all these cool things and why I say I can't, all of them are my favorite, is because I remember struggling in the classroom to engage my kids. And I always looked for a tool to make my life easier and the students happier. The truth of the matter is, each and every one of them was created with that passion and that heart of what is going to move the classroom. So to me, they're all cool, and they're all amazing, and they're all going to engage the kids. So yes, it is the easy way out, but that's the only way I know out, is that I made it easy on my way out, but it just makes it easier on the classroom and the teacher.
I can relate to everything you said, except for the fact that I haven't created a really cool product to solve a problem. And you've done that, what seems like very successfully, and, continued success in the future. Before I let you go, how can people connect with OGThat? How can they connect with you and learn more?
So they can absolutely go to our website, and it's www.ogthat.com. And they can connect with us directly on there, request a free demo. Somebody will get back to them right away. If they're interested in looking at pilot programs, we're still doing pilot programs for our interactive scavenger hunts as well, which is so cool. So cool. Yes, so I'm going to let Paulo just jump in for a second because...
No, so quick background. NYU has hosted a accelerated program for the last 3 months. Over 500 applications were submitted, and OGThat was one of them, 1 out of 9. This ecosystem has allowed us to really polish our business model and get our products, our service, our ideas to market. I want to give them a plug because there's a lot of respect for the folks here that started this accelerator program. So if anyone out there could just Google OGThat or StartEd or NYU Steinhardt, you could find us there.
Very cool. And would they also be able to Google those same things if maybe, unlike me, you're the teacher who's got this idea? Would they reach out to the same channels?
Absolutely. You could reach out to us on our website. Yes, www.ogthat.com.
Cool. Thank you for a few minutes of your time, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And that wraps up my review and recap of New York EdTech Week 2016. So there was a lot in there, from Ash and Jonathan to what Dr. Fried shared, and 2 new companies that you may or may not have been familiar with, 3D Bear and OGThat. So share your thoughts on Twitter. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Send me an email. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment on the show notes page. Would love to have your thoughts. And I can safely say I will look forward to going back to New York EdTech Week 2017. But on with the show, and let's go meet this episode's House of EdTech VIP. This episode's VIP, it's a little different than I've ever done. The VIP for this episode is a podcast. That's right, a podcast. The VIP is the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. This is a new weekly podcast designed to give you practical ideas for using Google and other Google tools in education. And I'd like to give you 3 reasons why you need to listen to this podcast. Reason number 1, co-host Matt Miller from Ditch That Textbook. Matt also appeared as a guest on this show in episode number 47. Reason number 2, the other co-host, Miss Casey Bell from Shake Up Learning. Casey was also a guest here on the House of EdTech back in episode 21. And reason number 3, I'm producing the podcast, which I'm very excited about. So Matt and Casey are the talent and the content generators, and I will be working behind the scenes to make sure that their podcast sounds awesome and their show notes are awesome and that their website is awesome. So as of the time I'm recording this, you can go to googleteachertribe.com and there'll be a form there where you can get on the podcast mailing list and be the first to know when the show goes live, which will be at the end of January 2017. If you're listening to this episode after January of 2017, then head over to googleteachertribe.com/subscribe, and you'll be able to subscribe to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice, and it's going to be a great podcast. And if you're listening to this after, it is a great podcast. So congratulations to Matt, Casey, and all of us at the Google Teacher Tribe podcast. You are the House of EdTech VIP. Wow, that is going to do it for probably the longest episode of the House of EdTech. Thank you again to summerpd.com for supporting this episode. Make sure you use the promo code House of EdTech when you go over to summerpd.com. Hey, let's keep the conversation going. You can visit the website, chrisnessy.com, and go to chrisnessy.com/77 to get the show notes for this episode, which are going to contain all the links and information that I shared with you in this episode. Special thank you to Sierra, as well as everybody who shared their one word for 2017, and everybody at New York EdTech Week who I met. It was awesome. And special shout out to Craig Peters, who is at Craig Peters on Twitter, who I've known for over a year now, who I know listens to the podcast, and I got to meet and shake his hand because he got to go to New York EdTech Week all the way from San Francisco. So it was great to meet you, Craig. When you head over to the show notes, again, leave your thoughts on the information and resources. And if you want to reach out and connect with me, go to chrisnessy.com/feedback. And that's going to give you my email and all the different ways that we can hang out digitally. Fastest of which is Twitter. I am at Mr. Nessy. Use the hashtag House of EdTech. Now, if you enjoy the podcast, and if you got this far in an episode this long, you certainly enjoy the show. So do me a favor. Tell somebody else about the podcast. Word of mouth and your personal recommendation is the best way to share this show. And I'd like you to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. Your rating and honest review will help to keep the House of EdTech front and center for others to enjoy. I'd like to do a quick thank you to Jacob Dunn for leaving the following 5-star review on iTunes, where he said that I am a phenomenal host and that I challenge myself to introduce new concepts to my teaching. I read that wrong. He said, Mr. Nessy is a phenomenal host, and he challenges myself to introduce new concepts to my teaching. This is one of my top listens as an educator. And again, thank you to Craig Peters, who left a 5-star review on iTunes. And he said, Mr. Nessy brings it together really well. It's well organized, follows a great structure, packs a lot in, and this episode certainly did, and is entertaining. Keep up the great work. You can read the full review for both of these on chrisnessy.com/77. Thanks always to my awesome supporters, Jen Giffen, Peggy George, Mark Grindell, Dan Gallagher, Jeff Herb, and Brent Warner. Thank you so much. The next episode, number 78, is going to be released on January 22nd, 2017, and I'm going to be talking to James Sturdivant. Until next time, thanks for joining me, and remember, using technology isn't difficult, just give it a try.